What's up, Winston? And today I'll be doing is another reaction video. It's part 9 of my reaction to Decade in Review the WWF in the 90s Full Decade Complication. So this was part 8. Go watch it before you watch this one, but this will be part 9. So hope you like it. If you do guys feel pick this up, hit the subscribe button, turn notifications, and let's start it.
Razor Ramon in the weeks that followed, a truly heartbreaking match in the process. This, Hart would continually demand a match with his brother, something which the Hitman would refuse to do at first for fear of tearing his family apart. Come the night of WrestleMania 10 on March 20th, however, in front of a packed Madison Square Garden crowd, he would cave in and give his younger sibling what he wanted as, from there, to open the show with one of the best bouts in WWF history. And by the end of that one, to the shock of many, it would actually be Owen who picked up the win, giving him bragging rights forever, and starting off Bret's night with a whimper, despite him still having a WWF title match to come. Elsewhere on the card, meanwhile, while Alundra Blaze was defending the women's title against Leilani Kai, and the Quebecers were doing the same with their tag team titles against Men on a Mission, Macho Man Randy Savage would have his last ever WrestleMania victory when he beat Crush in a pretty terrible Falls Count Anywhere match.
I would have to agree, that was a pretty terrible.
Would finally get his shot at Yokozuna as, with Mr. Perfect acting as the special guest referee, the two would battle it out over the WWF title in the middle of the show. Despite his best efforts, though, by now it was clear to all that Lex's moment had passed, and so, after 14 minutes and 40 seconds, he would end up losing by disqualification, closing the book on his main event run right there. But someone else's main event run was just getting started that night, as in the second to last bout, Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon would go to war over the Intercontinental title in a ladder match, with this marking the first time on television WWF had ever put on such a contest. So, wowed by what they were seeing then, fans couldn't look away as, over the next 18 minutes, HBK and Razor put on the second classic of the night, a match so good that it would later be the first WWF bout to ever be awarded 5 stars by Dave Meltzer. And while Ramon would be the winner come the end of this, it would be Shawn who really saw his stock rise afterwards, as his performance that night caused him to quickly become one of the most popular WWF stars on the roster. But there was still one more match to come before the show could end, and that was the main event between Bret Hart and Yokozuna, where in a rematch from the year before, the WWF title would once again be on the line. This time, though, there was no Hulk Hogan to throw things off track, and so that was why, after just over 10 minutes, the Hitman was able to pin the heel champion to win the title for the second time as, from there, the babyface roster came out to the ring to hoist him up on their shoulders. Out in the entranceway, the person who would be celebrating was Owen Hart, as he would instead watch with a mixture of frustration and glee, angry that his brother had once again stolen his moment, but happy in the knowledge that his earlier victory over him placed him next in line for a title shot. The following out from WrestleMania then, the Harts would start a lengthy feud, one which threatened to tear their family apart at the seams. And while this was happening, Vince McMahon's woes would grow and grow, as he would find himself in court, being forced to defend himself on charges of supplying anabolic steroids to members of his roster. And while, given the size of his roster in the years prior, it seemed clear that there was rampant drug use going on, the prosecution were having difficulty proving that McMahon was directly involved in this, something which led things to go down to the wire as, come June, fearing that he was going to go to prison, the boss would make plans to hand off day-to-day booking of his company to Jerry Jarrett, hoping then that he wouldn't have to serve too long behind bars and would be able to return before long. And if that wasn't bad enough, McMahon would find himself in court twice more this year. Once when he was forced to pay a settlement of $26.7 million to Charles Austin, a journeyman wrestler who had nearly been paralyzed during a botched rocker dropper, and again when Jesse the Body Ventura successfully sued him for $800,000 of unpaid royalties. Then, to top it all off, on June 10th, Hulk Hogan, who upon leaving WWF said he would never compete with Vince, signed on the dotted line with World Championship Wrestling, giving them the boost they needed to become legitimate competition to WWF in the years that followed. Yes, things weren't going well at all behind the scenes, but at least on camera, the company was able to put on a brave face as, that same month, they would induct their second Hall of Fame class, with this one including legends such as Bobo Brazil, Chief Jay Strongbow, Gorilla Monsoon, Blassie, Freddie Blassie, and the first ever WWF champion, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. On top of that, titles would change hands like wildfire as, in the weeks and months prior, Men on a Mission would have won and then lost the tag team titles, leaving the Head Shrinkers to pick them up for themselves in April, all while elsewhere, Diesel had started his rise to the top by beating Razor Ramon for the Intercontinental title on an episode of Superstars that same month. And this all led to the King of the Ring on June 19th, where hoping to prove that he was just as good as his brother in every way, Owen Hart had made it his intention to win the same crown Bret had won the prior year. As that was going on, though, the Hitman once again found himself having to face off against a standing Intercontinental champion when he got into a feud with Diesel, with this seeing the up-and-comer face the next test on his rapid ascent towards the top. But before that match would happen, the commentary team for the night would get things going by calling the quarterfinals of the titular tournament, with this round seeing Owen Hart, Razor Ramon, and 1-2-3 Kid all advancing. But by the time this was over, audiences watching at home were less focused on the matches themselves and more on the absolute terrible commentary of Art Donovan, with him repeatedly asking his co-announcers Gorilla Monsoon and Randy Savage who the wrestlers were and how much does this guy weigh as the night went on. But why he was there and not Vince McMahon? Well, that's because McMahon was allegedly suffering from a neck injury at this point, something which many believed was being done so he could go back to court to receive the jury's decision with a sympathetic neck brace on less than a week later. And so, with him gone for the night, Monsoon and Savage were forced to try and keep the train on track as, while the Head Shrinkers were retaining their tag team titles against Yokozuna and Crush, Diesel would shock the world when he beat Bret Hart. And while this would be a disqualification win, meaning the title didn't change hands, it still went a long way towards showing the high hopes the company had in Kevin Nash going forward. Back in the King of the Ring tournament, though, the semifinals would see Razor Ramon beat IRS and Owen Hart take out the 1-2-3 Kid in probably the best 3-minute match you're ever likely to see. And after that, the final would pit these two winners against each other, with Owen able to stay true to his promise by the end when he did exactly what his brother had done the year prior, winning the King of the Ring, and from there, dubbing himself to be the King of Hearts. But that wasn't the main event of the night as it happened because, in a baffling decision for a show which was the first to officially feature the label The New Generation, the last bout of the night would see 40-year-old Rowdy Roddy Piper take on 44-year-old Jerry the King Lawler in a match no one was clamoring to see. Luckily then, this only went on for 12 minutes and saw Piper come out the victor by the end, with him disappearing from WWF TV once again from there as Lawler returned to the commentary booth. More importantly than this, though, it would be 6 days later when Vince McMahon's fate was decided as, in the wrestling trial of the century, he was ultimately found not guilty on account of a lack of solid evidence that he had personally distributed steroids to his performers. That said, even if he was a free man, both his and his company's reputation had taken a massive hit, as it was clear that drugs had been rampant for years, and many still believed that the boss was up to his elbows in the whole thing. So having to try and move away from this image, WWF would be forced to clamp down and fire anyone who was caught with anabolic steroids after this, something which actually led to Crush being fired the following year. On top of this, McMahon would institute a testing policy for all his performers going forward, which they were expected to adhere to, though this would fade away in importance as the heat gradually began to die down. Back at the ring, meanwhile, WWF's next big show of the year would take place on August 29th as, there in front of a packed Chicago crowd, SummerSlam would take place. And this would end up being a show filled with ups and downs as the newly exonerated boss continued to struggle with defining the new identity of his company. Sure, he wanted to push more natural-looking, athletic guys in the wake of the steroid trial, and Bret Hart was the most over guy on the roster. But still, he couldn't quite get over his fixation with big muscle men. And so this would lead to the Hitman not main eventing that night, despite the fact that he was the incoming world champion and a part of the hottest feud in the company. No, that honor would instead go to the returning Undertaker. Yes, after having taken 7 months off and missing WrestleMania, the Phenom was now ready to return to the ring. But as he had been killed off prior to this, WWF would reintroduce him by having Naked Gun star Leslie Nielsen play his trademark dithering cop in a series of skits during the lead-up to the big show, interviewing various members of the public who claimed to have seen The Undertaker, thus proving interesting when, in early August, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, the very same man who had initially brought the dead man into the company, claimed to have reacquired his services going forward. That then would see him bring The Undertaker back in the weeks that followed, only for Paul Bearer to then return himself and announce that this incarnation of the fan favorite was nothing more than an imposter, and that the real Phenom would be coming with him to SummerSlam to send the Pretender packing. Elsewhere, in the lead-up to the big show, the Hart family feud would continue to get even worse when, still demanding his title shot, Owen would chase Bret around the house show circuit, at one point even picking up a phantom title win over him and becoming, for a couple of minutes at least, the WWF champion. And so, after so many battles, and with other family members such as Jim the Anvil Neidhart constantly getting involved, it became clear that the only way to settle things once and for all would be at the upcoming SummerSlam show.
Okay, thank you so much for watching. If you guys like this video, give this video a big thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel so I say thing, and yeah. Guys, again, I'm almost close to 540 subscribers. 540 subscribers. That's a lot. For a future goal, I really appreciate it. Again, this video is supposed to be my goal, reach 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 people watching. So where you go, I really appreciate it. Because again, these videos are possible to you guys. I love you so much for all your support. Like I always say, and I always mean. And yeah. Also, guys want to watch this? It was made by Wrestle with Andy. Put the link to their video down in the description. But yeah. I guess I go. Thanks for watching. Please like this video, leave a comment, subscribe for more, and I'll catch you guys for later for part 10 on my reaction to Decade in Review, the WWF in the 90s full decade compilation. I guess I go. Goodbye, and have a good day or night.